Hey guys, welcome to the Canadian Spartan Ambassador Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Amber.
And I'm Jill, and we are ready to take you through some Canadian Spartan content. We are so excited to bring this podcast to you where we will discuss lots of topics Spartan Race Canada.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected for all our exciting episodes to come. Okay, welcome back to the Canadian Spartan Ambassador Podcast. We are at episode 4, and we are here tonight to recap all things from Mont Tremblant. What a crazy, epic weekend that was. We've got Jill here with me, Alex, and Julie, and we are going to give you guys a great recap tonight. So make sure you comment on this podcast if you have any other, exciting moments from your weekend. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. So to kick things off, we're going to start with the Ultra because in our last episode, we talked about people who were prepping for it, things they were doing, gearing up for it. And Jill is on here with us tonight and she completed it. So Jill, how was your experience with the Ultra?
It was very long. We'll start there. But yeah, it was a great experience. I am really thankful that I did it. I'm excited that I completed it. I had a feeling that I would complete it, but then when you're on the hill, anything can change. Your body can take a nosedive at any point. I felt like I really had control over that though the whole time. And yeah, it was great. Part of the thing that I really enjoyed on the course was just meeting new people doing the Ultra. Everywhere you would go, there would be someone and you'd maybe run with them for 20 minutes to 30 minutes and you'd hear their story. At one point, I was running with Amber's husband, Zach, and we were talking about all sorts of things. And then at the very end of the first lap, I saw Alex and Julie and they were cheering for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank goodness. It's all those little tiny things that kind of push you through, right? Even the beast people would run by us and cheer us on. That was kind of a highlight because everyone sees us in the purple bibs and they're like, oh my gosh, those people are crazy. And we're also thinking that too. But when they're cheering for you, it's just it gives you life out there. So we were talking about nutrition before and my nutrition strategy was pretty good. I have a few things I want to change up. I don't think I can eat any more gels for a really, really long time. Oh my goodness. But other than that, yeah, it was amazing. The 8K loop, we were talking about that before. That was, thanks a lot, Nick. That was ridiculous. But that
Actually,
was
okay,
on the map, it seemed like just like an up and down. Was it really just like an up and down?
It was up and down. And so I saw that and went, okay, yeah, I can go up and down a mountain. That's nothing for me. That I'm not worried about that. Big deal. It'll shave off 8K. But it felt like we were doing it for 2 hours. One cool thing, though, was when we were going down, the elites were coming up. So that was really neat to be able to see who was, at the front of the race. I saw Leanne, gave her a high five. I believe Leanne came in second for that race. She's also an ambassador. I fist bumped with Yara and saw lots of people, even Jonathan, who we had on the podcast. I saw him at that point, and that also kind of gave you a little bit of life. So that 8K, it was brutal, but at the same time, there were some highlights going up with that as well. So, but yeah, very rocky and technical.
So the 8K, so just for those who are listening who weren't at the race weekend, for those who did the Ultra, it started out, and correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, or sorry, Jill ran the,
no worries.
I was looking at Julie. Jill, if I'm wrong. It started out with an 8-kilometer loop, which then linked into the Beast, and then the Ultras did the Beast 2 times through. So they did an 8-kilometer loop, and then essentially did the Beast twice. It
actually starts with it. The 8K was actually about the 10K mark. So we did a bit of the Beast race first. We got to where the monkey bars were. Well, actually a little further, but we went down the backside where the monkey bars were. I think for the Beast, it looped you around the hurdle. I forget what that one's called. It's just the big block. wood where
It's
you,
the hurdle. Monkey
yeah,
bars
okay.
and a hurdle were close one to another, but like on the opposite side of the track.
Yeah, so instead of that was about the 10K mark halfway through your race, the beast race. So at that point, that's where they sent you down. We had a sandbag carry there. We had the armor, and then we had a log carry there. So the all strength obstacles, and that probably added to it a lot too, because climbing up a hill is also a strength obstacle as well. So yes, 10K, then an 8K loop. By the time you got down to the transition area, you were about 30 kilometers in, and Spartan 30 kilometers. So it was more like 33 kilometers. My watch at the end of the day clocked 55K. But I do have to say my first lap, I did really great. My obstacle proficiency was about 95%. Second loop, it was about 60%. So, so I did some
So you
penalty
did
loops.
In for sure. And the course terrain, guys, like was epic. I don't know, like for me, like coming from Ontario, heading up to Quebec, like I'd never been in terrain like that. It was rocky, it was technical. It wasn't overly steep in comparison to Blue, but it was a different like challenge in its own. And I just found like I was noticeably definitely slightly more hesitant going on the downhills than some of my competitors who were probably from Quebec that were clearly quite comfortable descending in that terrain. So Alex and Julie, I know you guys are closer up there to Quebec. Like, are you guys comfortable in that sort of like rocky, loose terrain?
Well, I feel like there was a lot of like rocks and roots, and the roots were kind of dangerous because they're the one that your feet get stuck in, and it happened to me, and I was more cautious. But last year, I think it was pretty similar, and not this last year in Blue Mountain, but the year before, there was some technical parts too.
Yeah, and I remember because this course, and maybe we can talk about it a bit later, but it was pretty much almost to a T the exact same course as last year. So those technical parts I remember from last year, and yeah, they were pretty crazy. And on one of the races, you know that very technical part towards the end where you're like in the woods and it's like really downhill and super muddy. There was someone being like evacuated by medics over there because they and just later on I saw someone like roll their ankle. So yeah, those are really injury prone downhills for sure.
Yeah, I know. I actually missed one of the turnouts of the woods because I was so focused on where I was stepping. So that was my own fault. But just to like give you guys some numbers here, like it was a really technical course. In the ultra, it was actually 43% did not finish. Like it was a pretty grueling ultra.
And that was really interesting for me because I actually, just to cut in here, sorry, Amber, I got to the transition area and because I've done, and I've never done a Spartan 50K, but I had done two 50K trail races, one that went horrible and I felt terrible after the midway point. The second one, I started crazy slow and then built my speed. So I actually did that in the 50K. So I was slower, I would say back of the pack. By the time I got to the transition area, it looked like half the buckets were gone, all the transition buckets. So it felt like everyone had basically abandoned ship. So I can attest to that for sure.
I think most of the ones that I was talking to that did not finish, the decision was made at the transition. Just realizing, you know, the technicality of the race and the risk versus reward. Some of them I heard were just kind of doing the math and figuring, you know, I could stick this out, but in 6 hours, I'm going to get pulled off the course anyways. So again, I think it came down to a lot of like risk versus reward for a lot of athletes, and just some simple math. Like if I keep going this pace, am I even going to finish? Right.
Yeah. And I think for next year, for anyone who did not finish, because, and I'm just going to relate it back to my 50K trail races that I've done. When I did it the second time, the wisdom that I had from doing terribly in my first one completely gave me a different mindset to run the Spartan. So I'm actually really happy that I had a bad experience. And so anyone listening who did not finish, come back and try it again. It's going to be terrible, but you can do it the second time because you'll have that knowledge and wisdom. So I remember one of my coaches, and she still says it, the thing that you need to do in order to complete a 50K race, the most successful people have completed one before. So that's basically what happened while I was there. So
I believe it, because a lot of the ones that I said, or that I talked to, they basically said, yeah, they just felt like maybe slightly unprepared. And then, I mean, the extreme weather was a factor too. You know, there was a lot of like outside circumstances too, but they all said like they will be coming back, they will be trying again. And all of them have like extreme confidence that the second time around they will finish. And I honestly believe that because experience, right? And they mentally know what to expect, and in a sense, I mean, you never really know what to expect with Spartan, which is what makes it exciting. But they'll definitely go in more like mentally prepared. So that was kind of exciting to hear. But yeah, there was a 43% did not finish rate on the ultra. Which
there was also a 3% in the beast too. So that some people also didn't complete the beast as well. I know Julie and Alex did. So how did you guys feel about that?
You want to go, Alex, first?
No, go ahead.
Oh, well, the beast, I think it was difficult, but because of the weather, but the weather last year, it was colder. So this year it was nicer, more comfortable to run in it. What I really enjoyed, like the full long first climb, even though the course was pretty similar than last year, the barbed wire crawl at the top, it was like an extra challenge. That was amazing. And then it was not as cold on top of the mountains and not as windy, so you wouldn't like fly off the vertical cargo. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. We did it with a couple people we know, so some that are new to the OCR, and one of them was injured. But it was really fun. Like we were maybe like we weren't running or whatever, but we were waiting for everyone and doing it all as a team. And what I really enjoyed this year, like the staff, there's new staff, and especially like the one at the box. I don't know if you remember, Jill, but Stefan.
Yeah,
he was super nice. He would come down and like cheer people to do the box, and he would actually like go down the hill and come back up, and he was such in a good mood. Like, and at the Z wall, same thing, like all the volunteers, like this year the staff and the volunteers really like upgraded the experience
100%.
Yeah, so the beast, it was pretty good. It was my birthday, so what a
happy birthday.
nice way to celebrate it.
Does anybody know the name of that staff member? Because I know exactly.
We asked him, Stefan.
Stefan.
Yeah. He's a new from this year, I think.
He was also driving around in his truck because I spent the day there on Saturday, just pumping the music, cheering people on, and cracking jokes. Like that kind of stuff makes the entire race for me personally.
Yeah. And also the beginning, he's amazing. Jason Alexandre, like, wow, I can't believe it. Like, we just felt like we wanted to dance, but he's like, okay, I have to cut the party, and get you guys going.
And he plays great music too. His music is so good. I don't know if it's because it's kind of like my generation music, but then he plays everybody's music, really. He kind of just plays it all. So
and
he conveys good energy for sure. Oh, sorry, Amber, go ahead.
We had Armageddon again, which was super exciting. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I'm a little disappointed at those who didn't crawl under the barbed wire. Like, you're going out there to get dirty. Jill, get down, get going, start your race off. I think they should count it as an obstacle. I mean, I'm gonna count that on your track record of obstacles you missed.
I count it as there's no instructions, so I'm just doing it in a different way because you have to lift your legs over. I feel like I'm stretching. I'm doing a little hop.
But I love Armageddon. I feel like it gets me in the race mindset. I think it's fun. It just kind of gets you like your brain going like, okay, it's time for this. Like we're going out here now. It's Spartan time. So I think it's exciting. And everybody listening, get down and do Armageddon next time. And Jill, I'm gonna watch what you do.
All right, I'll do it next time.
In Montana, I think it was also a trifecta weekend, and I think at one of them I was tired of going under Armageddon, and I went. I think at the last race I went like over it, and I got my lesson. I ripped my pants because I got caught on the barbed wire because I guess I didn't lift my leg.
That's karma, Alex, because you didn't do it.
I haven't gotten my karma yet, so maybe I'll chalk that up as a warning and just get down there and do it.
There you go.
I don't know why I don't. There's no reason.
Obstacle wise, maybe we can talk about quickly on the course. They were for those who did it last year, it was pretty similar, even like obstacle placement, except a few ones that were like different, like the spear throw was at the instead of the Atlas and vice versa, but obstacle like placement was pretty much similar, which I found a bit disappointing because I like new, and maybe it's only like the diehard fans will notice this, but I noticed that was pretty much the same course and the obstacles were placed at the same place, like sandbag, bucket, like hoist, everything was the same. So I was a little bit disappointed because I knew from last year, but I'm so glad. And this, I guess it's maybe we should ask Nick if it's like a confirmation, but Pipe Lair was not there, and it wasn't either in Toronto. So I wonder, and also in the US, the races that we did so far with Julie, I didn't see Pipe Lair. So, and that was one of the obstacles that I hated the most because I found it like useless. So maybe it's gone for good, and we don't see Pipe Lair ever again.
It seems Pipe Lair, it's kind of one of those that just slows you down, but it looks like it's very over constructed. So from like a construction and a management, you're putting up all of those, like, it just seems way too big for what it is, right? Like,
yeah,
in my opinion. So maybe Nick's sick of setting it up.
Maybe. Well, okay, so back to the Beast. We had like over 900 racers do the Beast on Saturday, which is an awesome number. And just so you guys know, there was over 200 that attempted the Ultra. So that's pretty good. Some awesome numbers. 3% of the Beast did not finish. So that's a pretty good, I feel like, success rate considering the terrain and the weather and just the whole weekend in itself. But speaking of obstacle placement, I was just throwing some numbers out here just so everybody knows it's growing, which is like super duper exciting. I love seeing these numbers in the hundreds. I can't wait to get that Beast up into the quadruple digits. But speaking of obstacle placement, I do really have to say the amount of obstacles down at the bottom of the hill and that last like kilometer, maybe kilometer and a half stretch was amazing for spectators. Those who were watching and cheering on their teammates, or who drove in from afar just to support their family. It was an amazing experience for them down in the festival area. They got to see so much spear throw, rope climb, into the A-frame, into the Atlas carry. Then we went up and down the hill a little bit. The only thing that would have been really fun for the spectators to see would be the dunk wall. But other than that, like, I have to say, it was such an awesome setup for anybody who is spectating. So I'm really hoping they keep that up moving forward with Blue Mountain and other racers. How about you guys? Did you guys have spectators there? Did you get the same feedback?
We didn't have any spectators, but I love when courses are spectator friendly because you also get the energy, like when you're coming down from the mountain and going back to the festival, and you see people cheering on, not for you or maybe for you, but just hearing people is always like motivating, and hearing the music. So having that, spending some time in the festival, I think even if you have people cheering for you or not, it's just like a good vibe for sure. But that also brings another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jill.
I was just going to say, I also personally like the run and then a bunch of obstacles and then regroup on a run or a climb. That's a personal thing. I know everybody's different, but So I liked
So
that as well.
I was going to say something along those lines, is that it was a lot of the obstacles were condensed towards the end. On the beast, like there were many portions where it was only like running or no obstacles, because obviously if it's uphill, there's not much running involved, but like many areas where there was barely any obstacles. And some people like when it's more spread out, some people like when it's condensed. But one thing to consider for those who are like complaining that it was too packed towards the end is that when the race director sets up the course, and like many of those obstacles are for the sprint as well. So those obstacles cannot be like spread out throughout the beast course, because it needs to be also in the super and the sprint. So somehow the beast has to go like elsewhere and then come back to the core obstacles. So
and there's also only certain places you can put them on the hill too, and there's only certain places that have access with trucks and stuff like that. So there's a construction point of view in there, and maybe that's a great idea. I'm going to write that down for another podcast with Nick maybe and his crew, like a logistics podcast. Why is the race designed like that, kind of thing? So
I actually found like having so many of those obstacles clustered at the end, I found like, especially when I really pushed myself through the super, it added another level of fatigue that I went into some of those obstacles and I found them a lot more challenging than other races, because it was that last kilometer and there was like a whole bunch of them slammed there. And if you were like redlining the whole race, you just came off that Hercules, that sandbag carry, and now you've got to go hit the spear, the rope climb, the A-frame, the Atlas carry. Like, I found them so much more challenging in a good way. Like, I liked that I was really pushed there to finish strong, even though I didn't have a lot left in the tank. Like, it kind of added another layer to those obstacles, which was also different, that I haven't experienced before. So I found it kind of fun that they were all clustered there. And you had everybody just kind of helping you pull through at the end there, even when you really didn't want to, but you had to. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
And something about the course design on that part is that, and I remember from last year, and it was heartbreaking. So this year I was mentally prepared, is that when you finish like the sandbag and the hoist, and you come down to the festival, to the spear throw and all that area, it's about 21K. So like if you track with your watch, like you're like, oh my God, my beast is almost done. Like I'm going back to the festival. I hit 21K, and then you have those obstacles, and then you literally leave the festival for another 2K into the woods, another uphill up until Z Wall. So I remember like last year was really heartbreaking, because you're like, I'm at the festival, the finish line is just right there. I'm at the 21K mark, but I still have to leave and come back. So it must have been like heartbreaking for some people who thought they were finished when you were getting back to the festival, but then no, you're just like passing through and you have to come back later.
I agree with you on that.
That last time I was like, you're kidding me. Like, again, one more.
And that last climb too was really insignificant, but it really felt like you were going up a giant hill again.
Yeah, I felt like I was climbing Mount Everest on that last.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way. I was like, oh my gosh. And that was the ultra, the first lap of the ultra. I'm like, oh, this is over. But it wasn't, obviously.
Fashion, just when you think you're done, you're done. You got to do some more. And actually, you know what? That penalty loop on the multi-rig at the end was pretty aggressive. I didn't fail it, but I went through it with a friend of mine who did fall from multi-rig, and I was like, wow, like I'm really glad I came through this with you. It was at the end of the beast, and I was like, this would not be fun by yourself. It was tough. Like, you're literally in the woods. So I don't know if you guys went through that loop, but that was a fun little penalty loop at the very end of the race. Like, it was that, and then it was a fire jump. So
yes, and people were asking why there was no fire. I don't know fully for sure, but there were forest fires. So I'm going to assume that because we just came out of forest fires, Spartan decided not to. There was probably a fire ban in Quebec, I would assume. So
yeah, most likely. But I'm glad that they still had I guess a log jump without any fire, and you got your fire jump picture, because I know in California, the times that I've raced, I think there's always like a fire ban over there. They don't even have like a a jump, and I find that underwhelming to finish like the hoist and then you just go through the finish line and that's it. Or like, that I find that the fire jump is like key to the finish line, and you just jump and then you're done. But I find it underwhelming when you just finish and there's nothing, so I'm glad that they still had like logs without fire, but you still got to jump over it and get your picture.
Alex has epic fire jump photos though, so that could be also why.
So speaking of that, and I think Julie also has one, but on the last one, on the sprint, because after 50 plus races, like you run out of like fire jump poses. So I tried to be original, and I had like one in mind. And as I was about to do it, one of the logs I think fell, so I tripped on the log, and I kind of almost fell over. So I have the worst fire jump picture. I'm like almost falling down. It's totally not the pose that I wanted, and one of the staff came after and put the log back. I think Julie also tripped right after me. It was not my best fire jump for that one.
Not your best.
We need to start a whole Instagram with fire jump pose ideas, because I feel very under creative now because I just jump over. I never thought you could pose. I'm gonna have to like.
Oh yeah, Google hashtag fire jump Friday or something like that.
And then go look at Alex's. Julie has great ones too. They're pretty impressive.
All right.
I know.
Go find Alex and Julie on Instagram if you need fire jump photo op ideas. Speaking of, did you guys share your Instagram on the last one? How can people find you guys on Instagram? Might as well share it while we're at this topic.
I can actually put it on my name.
There you go.
And we have Mike who joined meanwhile. So hi, Mike.
Well, just say what's your Instagram handle for those who are listening if they wanted to find you.
Oh yeah, right. So mine it's Alexandre. Oh my God, it's Alexandre Contr. So it's the beginning of my last name.
If you start spelling that, though, it comes up if you're connected to a lot of other Spartan accounts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't find them, just go online, search who I follow, and you'll find them there.
Yeah. For the epic
we can
fire
also put them
photos
on the description of the on YouTube in the comments.
Yes, that's true. We can do that too.
For those who are listening and maybe driving, Julie, how could they find you on Instagram?
It's my name, Julie Duperron.
Perfect.
Awesome. And we have Mike that's entered the chat. He's from the West Coast, was not at the race, but we did see a few West Coast Spartans. I saw some, spoke with some. I ran with Carrie in the 10K, which was awesome because we just talked for almost the whole race. That was really nice. We actually talked about the Unbreakable Pass and all sorts of fun stuff. But Mike, did you get to see any of the action over there in the West Coast through social media or anything?
Yeah, no, I saw some posts that looked great. It looked like you guys had some really crazy weather too.
Yes.
Out there.
Saturday was kind of rainy off and on, and it wasn't too warm. It wasn't cold really, but it was kind of cold at the top and windy, but not cold like last year. And then Sunday it was very, very warm. I found it very hot on Sunday. So, but yeah, that's Ontario, or sorry, Quebec and Ontario are like that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can move over to the Sunday and talk about the sprint. The super was pretty like nothing special about it, but the sprint I thought was really cool for new people, for beginners, or for pretty much everybody, even those who did like the beast and the super, because you were tired by then. It was only one uphill, the one at the beginning, and then downhill and the obstacles. So the sprint was really, really fun, and it was a nice one for everybody.
Yeah, the sprint
and I feel
really
like
well
for those who did the trifecta weekend, like I feel like just knowing it was like one last climb was just kind of like an awesome way to like end the weekend. You're like, okay, I've done this, like I've got this. It's an up, it's a down, and then that little loop at the end. So, and I'm sure for anybody who did the ultra trifecta, like that was even more of a cherry on top to just have to go up and down.
It was awesome. I actually personally, doing the ultra trifecta, I had my daughter and her girlfriend with me. So that was really fun at the end of the weekend to do the last 5K with them. So, and they're brand new racers, and their takeaway after it, and they're young. So they're both 19 years old. They did amazing. I was so proud of both of them. It was really fun taking pictures. Their comments at the end were that it was the community. They couldn't believe all of these adults cheering for them. They didn't know. My daughter was on the monkey bars, and she looked like she was going to come off, and there were people screaming for her to finish, and she finished them. And I don't think she really realized, or they didn't realize, that there's such a community in the sport that we're doing. So another thing for our community.
That's true, actually. Like, my parents were there watching, and they've never come and seen a Spartan race. This was the first experience for them. They spent the whole weekend there cheering, not just myself and my, I call them my fit fam, my like gym peeps. They cheered for so many other people, and they just said like that was the one thing they noticed was it's such a community, and they weren't even on the hill, but they were experiencing that just in the festival area. So I mean, that's one of the really, really cool things about being part of Spartan is you're part of something bigger than just the race itself too.
And I think the sprint had that more than all the other races, because I feel like the sprint was more brand new people, which is so fantastic, that seeing new people come to Spartan. I believe there were, looking at my numbers here, there were 1945 sprint finishers with a 2% DNF rate on Sunday. So that was awesome.
Wow.
But also presented some problems as well, which we're going to talk about.
Yes, I was going to say that number might have been even bigger, at least for the finish, because some people didn't even take part of it, because if you were there, you saw or you likely might have seen that there was an issue with the timing chips. So people who were registered were doing the super basically, and then had to do the sprint after, they had to change their timing chip. So you couldn't, usually sometimes you can, when you're doing the super and the sprint in the same day, you can get both of your timing chips, but this time they didn't let us, and understandably, because they didn't have even enough chips for people who were doing the sprint. So when you were coming back from the super, there was a huge lineup which only got bigger because there was no timing chip available. So they were waiting for people to finish the race, the super, to bring the timing chips to the registration and then give them to new racers, which is kind of a nice problem to have. There were too many racers, but that created the issue where people were waiting. I know some people waited for like over 3.5 hours and ended up just leaving because they didn't have time. So that was unfortunate, but I'm sure Spartan learned their lesson as far as like purchasing timing chips for sure.
Yeah, and Amber and I were talking about this pre-call, so we kind of wanted to address the elephant in the room that way. And one thing that not everybody knows, people who have been with Spartan for a long time know that Spartan just before 2020 became Spartan North America. Before it was not owned, but it was another company that was managing the race. So it is new, the amalgamation. It's a new team for us. And I know that they're just coming back from the pandemic, which is not obviously an excuse, but the customer service from Spartan Canada's end now is to really make sure people come back. So they do actually want to rectify it. And Amber, I don't know if you want to go into some of the stuff going on behind the scenes, because it's really important that people know that Spartan actually does care and wants to make it better, right? So
I know what I do want to point out, like I think part of the timing of the chips coming in was the fact that this was a tough race, and there was people out there much longer than probably expected. Like just to talk about the super the sprint in itself, at Tremblant, there was a 2% did not finish rate, whereas at Brimacombe, there was only 0.6. So just to show you the difference in like the technicality and the difficulty of this race, people were just naturally out there longer. Like it was a tough race. So those chips weren't coming in quite as fast as probably expected. But Spartan they're great, and they really want to make this right for people. So us as ambassadors, we've got connections in the conversations and a little bit more of resources and back end of what's happening. So this is coming right from the source. Spartan Canada has heard you guys. They were well aware that this was maybe slightly a disappointment for those who were racing for the first time or who were waiting. I myself appreciated the added rest between races, but not everybody did, so that's okay. But here's what's happening, guys. So those of you who expressed this or didn't do the race or whatever, watch your email. They're sending out an email with a 50% discount on their next race if you didn't race during the weekend. So you have 30 days to use your entry at another event. The operations team is working on improving this situation moving forward. They're purchasing more timing chips for Canada. They're adding an 1.5-hour gap between super and sprint heats on Trifecta weekends. Trifecta weekends up here in Canada are slim pickings. So as expected, I think they now are aware that they're going to be extremely busy weekends. But they're also going to be reducing heat sizes to 150 to 200 racers depending on the venue. So they're being very proactive about this, guys. This is black and white. This is what they're doing. And I am very confident that this situation will unlikely be repeated at races moving forward. Like, I think they're definitely more prepared. And I do think it's exciting to see, the race community growing in exponentially, like super fast, right? So, it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time, but do expect that your next experience is going to be pretty ballin'.
Because at the end of the day, too, Spartan it's a business. They want to continue to grow in Canada, and if they're making people upset, then that's not going to work. I know that the race directors, the marketing directors, everyone involved in Spartan Race Canada is super passionate about the sport too. They're racers. You'll see them on the course as well, or they've done them before. So it feels like to them that one of their kids broke their leg or something, like they feel that. So they're going to be rectifying those situations. So cross our fingers, we'll get lots of racers and no hiccups.
Also, there has been like discussion about adding a Trifecta weekend lane just for registrations. So that's not necessarily like confirmed at this point, but it is in discussion. So that those who are going on and off the hill multiple times in a weekend just can do that a little bit more fluently and a little more accessibly. So that's also in discussion. So
yeah, and in the open race too, if you miss it. Sorry, Amber, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to kind of wrap it up because it was touched on everything. It was a great weekend. And I just want to mention, I don't know if this was talked about, but on Trifecta weekends in Canada right now, you won't see age group races for the sprint. It's only going to be for the supers, the beasts, and the ultras for the time being. So if anybody was at the race and was wondering why they could not register in an age group sprint, Trifecta weekends in Canada, you won't be doing that for the time being. But I enjoyed racing with some friends and some teammates and just kind of finishing off my Trifecta weekend with some friends and just kicking it back and enjoying. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it's important to enjoy both sides of Spartan, like hitting an age group race and then hitting an open race with your friends and your family, because it really reminds you to just enjoy the sport as well. So.
And Julie and Alex, what Trifecta number are you on for this year already?
This is our
3.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, we had a few, I don't know if anybody noticed, walking around giant, huge medals. We had a couple people, I believe they were from the US, getting their 11th Trifecta this year. We also had Yara, who's going to try to beat her world record of 32 Trifectas in a year. She's going for 33. And what did we say? We said this was her 13th Trifecta this year. So lots of opportunities to travel as well.
And
we have Graham also, that was at his 7th. He's also an ambassador.
All right, Graham is going for the Canadian record.
What do we know what number that is?
So if you guys don't, sorry. Again, there might be someone listening. So when you do a Trifecta in a weekend, you get like a special Trifecta weekend medal. So you have to do all 3 races within the weekend to get the special medal. But then as you do more and more Trifecta weekends in the same year, your Trifecta weekend medal gets bigger and bigger and bigger, basically. So it's just kind of like, if you like to, collect the bling, it kind of is a little fun incentive to keep doing your trifectas all in one weekend and getting that bigger medal every time you do. So I saw the guys holding the 11-time trifecta medal, and it was big. It looked
It's like
heavy.
a dinner plate. And Alex,
Yeah,
you
so
mentioned
I
Graham. You
imagine-
mentioned Graham on that one. He is our Canadian who is going for a Canadian record. Do you have a little info on Graham?
I forgot. Well, Julie knows him good. She's always good at presenting him.
And Graham's also an ambassador as well. So
Yeah, I think is he from the West? I think.
No, he's from Montreal.
Oh yeah, he's okay. He travels everywhere. Like we've seen him in Montana. He was in Big Bear. He's like literally everywhere. We've crossed paths with him like so many times on the course this weekend, and yeah, he was.
That was his 7th, was it?
Yeah, it was his 7th.
7th, and the Canadian record is in the 15s, I think, something like that.
that's a lot of race weekends.
He's on track to beat it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So there is like obviously there's not a trifecta race opportunity every weekend in Canada, but I'll be honest, like going into the States, and I'm sure Alex and Julie can attest, like it's pretty accessible for us in Ontario anyways to access race weekends in the States. I've done it once this year, probably going to go to Killington in September. So there are ways to, rack up those trifecta weekends. Julie and Alex, you guys have done a few already. Where did you guys go already this year in the States?
Yeah, and even in the West Coast, and Mike can speak to that because I know like Seattle is pretty close and California's, but yeah, on the West Coast, we're in Quebec, obviously, but so Killington is anything that is drivable, we do. So New Jersey, New York can be drivable. We're going to Boston. We're going, actually our next Spartan is in Pennsylvania. It's the Palmerton. And this one is not a trifecta weekend, so it's only a super and a sprint and a trail.
And a trail.
Yeah, and a trail.
Nice.
Julie loves trails. But yeah, anything that is drivable within reason, we go, and there are quite a lot. So if you had a season pass, a Canadian season pass, you had 4 US weekends that were included in the pass. So that's really convenient because it's up to 12 races because you can have up to 3 races in a weekend. So it was a really good deal this year to get the pass. So we definitely leverage it.
What are you guys on track to do this year?
20-something races. Obviously, we were unlucky this year because Hawaii was canceled, and when we were in Big Bear, our super and sprint was canceled because of the thunder. So there goes 5 races already that we were supposed to do and we're not getting. But I mean,
I still have a weekend left with my pass, so I'm kind of sad. I don't want to waste it.
Yeah, because you didn't register to Hawaii, and so I had registered already, so I lost it. Mike, what about you? What do you do on the West Coast, US? I'm sure Seattle must be in your Seattle, Montana.
Yeah, actually, this year I went and did the Beast at Montana. For trifectas, I'm doing Kelowna, and I'm going down to Seattle. Last year I did Big Bear, and I've done Tahoe. So Tahoe and California are easily accessible for the West. Montana on the West is really not that bad of a drive. It's like 11-hour drive because I did that for Montana this year, and when I go to Red Deer, I'll be driving as well. So there are a few trifecta weekends that are accessible. Just doesn't seem to be as much as the East Coast, but we still have races accessible, and it's fun to travel.
So maybe we could like segue and maybe I guess wrap up because I'm seeing time with those upcoming races for Canada, which are on the West Coast. Red Deer and Kelowna are the ones that are up next, I believe.
Absolutely. Mike, tell us about what's next on your side of the coast.
So first race coming up is next month. We've got Red Deer, and it's a sprint and a super. For those of you who haven't raced in Red Deer, it's a great venue. I personally like going to that venue to try and beat my time from the race before, just because it's a relatively flat course. Kelowna is going to be an epic trifecta weekend. expect some climbs. Weather is going to be uncertain. Last year it was near the end of August. This year it's more the end of September. And I remember last year we had a little bit of snow on the one day. So, weather could be anything. And Seattle is in between there. So that's, it's not West Coast Canada, but it's close enough. And that's another great venue if you're looking for a flat, fast course.
And the series, the Canadian National Series, is in Red Deer. And is that the 5K or the 10K?
I believe it's the 10K.
Okay, no, so if you're
or is it the sprint?
It's a sprint, but the 10K is in Kelowna, so they're both national series.
Perfect. So if you are an age group racer or are considering age group racing, and you're on the West Coast, this year the National Series is a little stacked on the West Coast, which is awesome because it's normally kind of in our favor on the East Coast. So if you are an age group racer, or even if you're not, you should look into competing in those races, because sometimes even if you just are there, you may get enough points in order to score high in the series. And last year there was some pretty cool race prizes. So definitely look into that if you're an age grouper or open racer for sure.
And also worth noting, this year the North American Championship is in Killington. Last year it was in Kelowna. This year it's in Killington, so it's accessible for us on the east side, very drivable and accessible. And plus it's Killington, it's epic. So this should be a fun one. But last year in Kelowna, it was fun. All the main athletes in OCR world were there. Or at least most of them, and Julie and I were doing the rabbits, the media coverage for OCR reports. We were filming them running, and it was a cool competition. So I'm sure there will be a big challenge in Killington this year as well for the North American Championship.
And that one I was hearing while I was running, just a little quick tidbit from some American racers, that it has more elevation, but than Tremblant for the ultra, but it does not have the technicality of Tremblant. So that was the feedback that I heard from some people who had done the ultra, but the ultra is not the North American championships. It is the 21K for that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Amazing, you guys. Well, I am so glad that we raced together. It was great seeing everyone on course, even though I felt like I was up on the mountain the entire time and didn't get a lot in the festival. I hope you all enjoyed that. And yeah, we can't wait for the next adventure that we'll all be on with Spartan.
Yeah, so we've got some pretty exciting topics coming up, guys. For our upcoming podcast episodes. There will be a little less race recaps going on in the time being, because there's just not a lot of races happening over here on the East Coast, but we've got some pretty awesome topics coming your way. So definitely stay connected. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe so you stay connected on all the updates and what's happening in the Spartan Canada world. Guys, you don't want to miss this. We've got some exciting stuff coming. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Julie and Mike and Alex for helping us give you guys some great race recaps from the weekend. And if there are topics you want to hear about, if you've got questions, if you've got people you want to hear from, guys, please reach out to Jill or I. We'd love to have a conversation and bring you guys the best content out there when it comes to Spartan Canada. So with that said, peace out till next time, and we'll see you guys soon.